Galactic Renaissance is a science fiction competitive game for 2 to 4 players. There is also a 5th player expansion, but I haven't tried that one. And it is a game of, I was gonna say area majority, but really is area presence, meaning that you will spend resources and actions to move your pieces in different areas in the play area, represented by planets, and you're not always necessarily trying to have majority. Oh no, you're not. There are situations where you want to have majority, other cases where you want to have a presence, but in a minority. It all depends on what the objective cards say. And there is quite a number of objective cards. You will only use 5 in a game, so you're going to have huge variety of what scores. You will, at the beginning of the game, shuffle the objective cards and place 3 face down on this display here, plus 2 face up. And players from time to time will take actions that allow them to check the scoring conditions. And say, for example, I will get 2 victory points if this card is up for each shared planet. So I'm there and there's at least another player with a foundation, one of these game pieces, but where I'm in the minority. Now I don't want a majority there. Here, share planet with the yellow portal where I'm present. Then as we score, and when a certain scoring threshold is passed, we reveal the third objective. Oh, now a planet where I'm leading. So leading, minority, they can be very different. And as the game continues, this will be discarded, and this other objective will become available. Then this is discarded, and this becomes available. The game continues until, by altering the situations, the play area, and scoring, a player manages to reach 30 points. The first player to score 30 points wins the game. An interesting twist is that you can never score points between 21 and 29, meaning the last 10 points, you gotta score them in a single round. If you ended a round, let's say 28, well, then you immediately drop down to 20. You gotta make the last leap with 10 points at a time, which ultimately later in the game is not that difficult. You will have your own engine there. It's not going to slow you much. And as players pass some thresholds, that is when those objectives are changed or altered. Planets. Planets are formed procedurally, when some at the beginning of the game and some as players explore new planets, by drawing a tile that tells you about how many people and buildings can be there before they cause some disorder, and then another tile that tells you what kind of planet that is. And once you determine that, you will also take a token, the matching token, and place it there. These tokens indicate unique abilities that the planets have, so you may want to keep these tokens in alphabetical order so you can match them with the tiles when they come out. And that is how you form a planet, either at the beginning of the game or again as planets are discovered. Players also have a personal display representing their government. Well, first you have a tile formed exactly the same as the other ones to represent your personal planet, your home planet. Also, you have these tokens that represent the gates that connect the different planets with one another. For example, from my home planet at the beginning, I can only go to places that have a blue gate. There's also a planet at the beginning that is determined to be the hub, and it has special connections with game effects. Also, you can always go to the hub. And so, for example, if I have my own people there, and they can carry an infinite number of people, and I use an action to move, I could go to the hub, and then another action to move, then I can go to a planet with a yellow gate. So that's how the gates work. So you have your own planet, and you have your own government, represented by this display here. The government is where you place the tokens of the planets that you control, You need to both be leading, so have more game pieces than anybody else, and take a specific action. And then you take the corresponding tokens, so that's how we may look after a couple of turns. During your turn, you may also take the actions indicated by your planet, and then you flip it that way to indicate you activated. Basically, each turn you can only use your action planets once each. These are the tokens here. They represent institutes. We call them buildings. It's easier that way. And when you build them clockwise, starting from this one here. And so the first one you build, you get to draw an extra card. The next one that you build, all right, now your hand size is increased to 3. You start with a hand size of 2. So basically, you're gonna have a deck of cards with different actions, and each turn you're gonna play a card, at least a card, and do what it says. You resolve it that way. And that may also allow you to use one of your planets, which will give you an extra action. These little arrows here indicate extra actions. So sometimes you play an action, then you don't have other actions connected. After that, you're supposed to stop right there. Many actions, however, will allow you to take extra actions. So I play this one, for example, resolve that one, gives me an extra action. I play another card that also gives me an extra action, or I play a card that lets me activate a planet, which gives me an extra action. So very often you'll take 2, 3 actions during a turn. Everybody starts with the same basic deck with things such as exploring a new planet, placing a foundation. These buildings do not belong to any player, but they allow you to score different things and activate different victory conditions. The ambassador, that is when you can take a planet where you're leading. Move an emissary to the hub and get to score the objectives. So this is extremely important card. Once I lost the game, I could score enough to win, and my other player and another player got their senator out first. The Institute, these are the buildings here. That's when you can build those. The Recruiter, you get new people out of your supply and into the mess there. The Captain, you move emissaries around. Back to the Explorer. Then we have the Specialists, and they have a gray text as opposed to the starting cards that match the player's colors. And then you get to use game effects to add them to your deck. So definitely there is a deck building element. And some have also these effects called disorder effects, and in a minute I'll tell you what those are. So these are pretty powerful cards, and you can add them to your deck and form some interesting synergies. The idea remains this, that you are trying to get new people on the board. To build your buildings also gives you more cards in hand, create synergies to match different situations, and then when it looks like you're ready to score, hope that you get your senator in hand and then you score accordingly. So that is the basic idea. However, at the end of a player's turn, a planet may get a little too crowded, like it happens there. Well, it's not too crowded yet. You see all of the spaces that we see there? They are, let's do it here, it's closer. There you go. If every space is taken, we're still good. If during a player's turn there are more pieces than spaces, it's fine. Suppose that they move before the player ends their turn. But if at the end of a turn there are still more pieces there than spaces, then starting with the active player, we need to resolve a disorder phase and replace a token. There's a reminder because there may be multiple planets where we have disorders that we need to resolve. The active player chooses the order in which you resolve the disorders. And then you simply go in turn order, starting from the active player, and each player must do an action. You can remove one emissary from the disorder when it is your turn and you put it back into your supply. You can move at least 2 emissaries, if you have that many, to another planet, which can be a nice trick to shuffle pieces around. You can remove one of your institutes, again, to pay for the disorder thing. Or you can play a disorder card, meaning a specialist, these non-player cards that can be acquired, that has such an effect. And usually they are pretty good. So actually, if I have one of these in my hand, I may start some mess, some disaster here, so the other players are taking a penalty, removing their pieces, and then I play my disorder effect. Of course, multiple players. I'm not the only one who's figured out that disorder cards can be very good. So, disorder becomes its own mini game as we go around the table and make decisions until there are fewer game pieces. At the end of a full turn, where everybody who was involved in a disorder has taken a disorder action, we continue like this until, well, there are fewer pieces or the same number of pieces as the spaces available. And that's how you resolve a disorder. We mark that way, and then we go to the next disorder. We continue like this. So this is the general idea. During your turn, play cards from your hand that will allow you to get extra effects. They will allow you to get more cards into your deck, make your ambassadors available, move the ambassadors around, to have influence, a lot of influence, or not a lot of influence, depending on the objective. Build the buildings. Again, the idea is that then you have a presence there. Build foundations to match some of the objectives, and use your planets. So around the idea of like play a card, trigger possible actions, and then do things that they really make sense contextually. That's the general idea. You try to expand your empire, in any case, to match those objectives. From time to time you score, and the first player to score 30 points wins the game. I like this game. I like this game quite a bit. I played it with 2 and with 3 players. I definitely enjoy it with 3 players more. I want to try with 4 also at some point. But 3 was fine. Actually, almost wondering if 4 may have too much analysis paralysis, it may take too long, things like that. But 3 is the perfect spot because you have enough complexity, you have enough other plans around you that you're taking those into account. There are more other players that you can be superior to or inferior to on purpose because some objectives require you to do that. It's just a more nuanced set of circumstances to analyze, and so that's to create your strategy around, which to me that is where the fun is. To me, good games are about meaningful decisions, and you're gonna get a lot of these as the game progresses. Something I didn't mention, but is also super interesting and super fun, is that you never shuffle your deck. So, when you get a new card, it goes on top, then it goes in your hand immediately. Really fun when you have a deck building game in which you can immediately use what you can do, what you acquire. Then you play your cards in a specific order, so at the end then you reverse them and you put them in your deck. So you get control over the sequence of things. I need my senator after a certain card, so I know that will allow me to move cards, to move ambassadors, to match the objective. Then I get the senator in my hand that allows me to score. Then I need to do a certain thing. Those chains are particularly powerful. Then when you add the specialists, the unique cards that will give you other effects, those are also very neat. There's one that lets you play an action after you played an action that usually would end your turn. Cards that let you put cards on top of your deck rather than at the bottom, again to have more control over those timing elements. But the fact that you can create your own sequence of actions and then alter it as you go, that to me adds another interesting layer of decisions, and that's what the game is all about, really. I was constantly making decisions, considering new things, altering my strategies as things went by. I have the nice balance between the tactical layer, seeing different opportunities, jumping from one to the other. Again, with 3 players, you have more of those openings, because in 2 players, it's a zero-sum game. So something's a little obvious. I'm not going to do that because this and that. So the tactical element of exploiting opportunities, and then the larger strategic long-term element of creating a sequence of cards having certain effects in a certain place in my deck. All of those are very rewarding, very satisfying elements. Something I was worried, it was the problem I had with earlier editions of Dominion. I haven't played some of the recent titles, but sometimes with those cards, they give you extra actions. You will see a player just go on and generate extra actions for like 10 minutes, and I'm like, just wake me up when it's my turn. That kind of thing that could really kill the pace of the game. This doesn't happen here because although some players will take multiple actions in a turn, they never take too long. It never, in my experience, get to like, a ridiculous amount of actions. Rather, I'm going to explore, so I set up a new planet, which is exciting for everybody. Everybody wants to pay attention to that. And then maybe I go there and have an extra action, make some other things available, and maybe I build a building. It does not alter the pace and the flow of the game, but at the same time, it really gives an incentive to create those powerful, nice synergies. So you have interesting interactions with the players, interesting decisions as you add your cards, as you sequence them, as you then implement the actions in a constantly changing environment. I like it. It really is fun gameplay. Gameplay that is easy to teach, easy to implement, really makes sense contextually. I like it very much. I like it very much. But one thing, maybe in the long run, something that worries me, I think the game may need more specialists. After a while, I was already thinking, well, that specialist, if I see her, I'm going to collect, and then the specialist, they're going to do that thing together. Sometimes I feel like almost you have too much control over the selection of specialists. There aren't like a ton. And I wish there were more. Again, I haven't seen that. That has not been a problem. I think it might be if you keep playing the game, and then players will just fall for just straight to get their favorite synergies. I think if you had a lot more specialists, and maybe only some are used every game, and some are not there at all, and you don't know which ones are not there, I think that may help the game stay fresh for even longer. Maybe that will be in the expansions, but as is, Galactic Renaissance is a really solid, card-driven deck-building game that gives you a lot of control and strategy, more than a lot of other deck-building games do. Card-driven game it's a card-driven game with a lot of interesting options, but everything feels lean and nice and intuitive. And so ultimately, your brain power will be devoted to create and alter and modify your strategy, having a good time, and reacting to other people's actions, which really, to me, are great things, or what motivates me to play strategy games. So, I like it. I like Galactic Renaissance quite a bit.